There is solely one passion which satisfies man need to unite himself with the world, and to acquire at the same time a sense of integrity and individuality, and this is love. Love is union with somebody or something outside oneself, under the condition to keeping the separateness and integrity of one's self. It is an appearance of sharing, of communion, which permits the full opening of one's soul inner activity. The appearance of love does away with the necessity of illusion. There is no need to inflate the image of the other person or of myself, since the reality of active sharing and loving permits me to go beyond me, individualized existence, and at the same time to appearance myself as the barrier of the active powers which constitute the act of loving. But the master sees the particular quality of loving, not the object.
Love. There is only one passion which satisfies man's need to unite himself with the world and to acquire at the same time a sense of integrity and individuality. And it is love. Love is union with somebody or something outside oneself under the condition of keeping the separateness and integrity of one's own self. It is an experience of sharing, of communion, which permits the full opening of one's own inner activity. The experience of love does away with the necessity of illusion. There is no need to inflate the image of the other person or of myself, since the reality of activity, sharing, and loving permits me to go beyond my individualized existence, and at the same time to experience myself as the bearer of the active powers which constitute the act of loving. What matters is the particular quality of love, not the object. Thank you.
Love. There is only one passion which satisfies man's need to unite himself with the world and to acquire at the same time a sense of integrity and individuality. And this is love. Love is union with somebody or something outside oneself under the condition of keeping the separateness and integrity of one's own self. It is an experience of sharing, of communion with the permit, the full opening of one's own inner activity. The experience of love does away with the necessity of illusion. There is no need to infer some image of the other person or of myself, since the reality of active sharing and loving permit me to go beyond my individualized existence, and at the same time to experience myself as the bearer of the active power which constitute the act of loving, which matter is the particular quality of loving, not the object.
Love. There is only one passion which satisfies man's need to unite himself with the world and to acquire at the same time a sense of integrity and individuality, and this is love. Love is union with somebody or something outside oneself under the conditions of keeping the separateness and integrity of one's own self. It is an experience of sharing, of communion, which permits the full opening of one's own inner activity. The experience of love that away with the necessity of illusion. There is no need to inflate the image of the other person or of myself, since the reality of active sharing and loving permits me to go beyond my individualistic existence and at the same time to experience myself at the better of the active powers which constitute the act of loving. What matters is the particular quality of loving, not the object.
The Secret Garden. The sun shone down for nearly a week on the Secret Garden. The Secret Garden was what Mary called it. When she was thinking of it, she liked the name, and she liked still more the feeling that when it beautiful overshadowed her, and no one knew where she was. It seemed almost like being shut out of the world in some fairy place. The few books she had read and liked had been very solid books, and she had read of the Secret Garden in some of the stories. Sometimes people went to sleep in them for 100 years, which she had thought was later foolish. She had no intention of going to sleep, and in fact, she was becoming wider awake every day, which passed at midnight. She was beginning to like to be out of doors. She has no longer hate the wind, but enjoyed it. She could run farther and longer, and she could skip up to the 100. The bulbs in the Secret Garden must have been as much astonished. Such nice clearly places were made round them that they had all the breathing space they wanted, and really it wasn't merely know it. They began to shut under the dark earth and work tremendously. The sun could get at them and warm them, and when the rain came down, it could reach them at once. So they began to feel really much alive. Melly was an old, determined little person, and now she had something interesting to be determined about. She was really much absorbed. Indeed, she worked and dug and pulled, which steadily only becoming more pleased with her work. Every hour instead of tiring of it, it seemed to her like a fascinating sort of play. She found many more out of sprouting pumpkin pie than she had ever hoped to find. They seemed to be starting up everywhere, and each day she was sure she found tiny new ones, some so tiny that they barely peeped above the earth. There were so many that she remembered what Mother had said about the sort of by the thousand, and about bulbs breeding and making new ones. These had been left to themselves for 10 years, and perhaps they had spread later the sort of. In 2000, she wondered how long it would be before they showed that they were flowers. Sometimes she stopped digging to look at the garden and tried to imagine what it would be like when it was covered with thousands of lovely things in bloom.
The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. The sun shone down for nearly a week on the Secret Garden. The Secret Garden was what Mary called it when she was thinking of it. She liked the name, and she liked still more the feelings that when its beautiful old walls shut her in, no one knew where she was. It seemed almost like being shut out of the world in some fairy place. The few books she had read and liked had been fairy story books, and she had read of secret gardens in some of the stories. Sometimes people went to sleep in them for 100 years, which she had thought was rather foolish. She had no intention of going to sleep, and in fact, she was becoming wider awake every day which passes at midnight. She was beginning to like to be out of doors. She no longer hated the wind, but enjoyed it. She could run faster and longer, and she could skip up to 100. The bulbs in the secret garden must have been much astonished. Such nice clear places were made round them that they had all the breathing space they wanted. And really, if Mistress Mary had known it, they began to share up under the dark earth and work tremendously. The sun could get at them and warm them, and when the rain came down it could reach them at once, so they began to feel very much alive. Mary was an odd, determined little person, and now she had some things interesting to be determined about. She was very much absorbed. Indeed, she worked and dug and pulled up weeds steadily, only becoming more pleased with her work every hour instead of tiring of it. It seemed to her like a fascinating sort of play. She found many more of the sprouting pale green poets that she had ever hoped to find. They seemed to be stirring up everywhere, and each day she was sure she found tiny new ones, some so tiny that they barely peeped above the earth. There were so many that she remembered what Mother had said about the snowdrops by the thousands, and about bulbs spreading and making new ones. These had been left to themselves for 10 years, and perhaps they had spread, like the snowdrops, into thousands. She wondered how long it would be before they showed that they were flowers. Sometimes she stopped digging to look at the garden and tried to imagine what it would be like when it was covered with thousands of lovely things in bloom.
The Secret Garden. The sun shone down for nearly a week on the secret garden. The secret garden was what Mary called it when she was thinking of it. She liked the name, and she liked still more the feeling that when its beautiful old walls shattered and no one knew where she was, it seemed almost like being shut out of the world in some fairy place. The few books she had read and liked had been fairy story books, and she had read of Secret Garden. In some of the stories, sometimes people went to sleep in them for 100 years, which she had thought was rather foolish. She had no intention of going to sleep, and in fact, she was becoming wider awake every day, which passed unmiserably. She was beginning to like to be out of doors. She no longer hated the wind, but enjoyed it. She could run farther and longer, and she could skip up to 100. The bulbs in the secret garden must have been much astonished. Such nightclubs were made of them that they had all the breathing space they want. And Lily, if Mr. and Mary had known it, they began to share up under the dark earth and work tremendously. The sun could get at them and warm them, and when the rain came down, it could reach them at once. So they began to feel very much alive. Mary was an odd, determined person, and now she had something interesting to be determined about. She was very much absorbed. Indeed, she worked and dug and pulled up weeds steadily, only becoming more pleased with her work every hour instead of tiring of it. It seemed to her like a fascinating sort of play. She found many more of the spouting pale green points than she had ever hoped to find. They seemed to be starting off everywhere, and each day she was sure she found tiny new ones, some so tiny that they barely peeped above the earth. There were so many that she remembered what Mother had said about the snowdrops by the thousands, and about bulbs spreading and making new ones. These had been left to themselves for 10 years. And perhaps they had spread like the snowdrops into thousands. She wondered how long it would be before they showed that they were flowers. Sometimes she stopped digging to look at the garden and tried to imagine what it would be like when it was covered with thousands of lovely things in bloom.
The Secret Garden. The sun shone down for nearly a week on the secret garden. The secret garden was what Mary called it. When she was thinking of it, she liked the name, and she liked still more that feeling that village is beautiful. All was changed her. In no one knew where she was. It seemed almost like being shut out of the world in some fairy place. The few books she had read and liked had been fairy story books, and she had read of secret gardens. In some of the stories, sometimes people went to sleep in them for 100 years, which she had thought was later foolish. She had no intention of going to sleep, and in fact, she was becoming wider awake every day. Which passed as Miss Wade. She was beginning to like to be out of doors. She no longer hunted the wind, but enjoyed it. She could run faster and longer, and she could skip up to the 100. The bugs in the secret garden must have been much astonished. Such nice clear place, where make loud them that day, had all the breathing space they want, and Larry, Eve, Matthew, Mary have no it. They began to cheer up under the dark earth and work tremendously. The sun could get at them and warm them, and when the rain came down, it could reach them at once, so they began to feel very much alive. Mary was an art, determined little person, and knew she had something interesting to be determined about. She was very much absorbed indeed. She worked and drank and put up with steadily, only becoming more peace when her work very hour instead trying for it. It seemed to her like a fascinating sort of play. She fought many more of the spouting pale green points than she had very hoped to find. They seemed to be starting up everywhere, and each day she was sure she found tiny new ones, some so tiny that they barely peeped above the earth. There were so many that she remembered what Martha had said about the snowdrops by the thousand, a brown bus splitting and market new ones. This has been left to themselves for 10 years, and perhaps they had spent like true snowdrops in the in 2000s. She wonders how long it would be before they showed that they were flowers. Sometimes she stopped, trying to look at the garden and try to imagine what it would be like when it was covered with thousands of lovely things in bloom.
The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. The sun shone down for nearly a week on the secret garden. The secret garden was what Mary called it when she was thinking of it. She liked the name, and she liked still more the feeling what when it's beautiful. Old walls shut her in no knew where she was. It seemed almost like being shut out of the world in some fairy pace. The few books she had read and liked had been fairy story books, and she had read the secret gardens in some of the stories. Sometimes people went to sleep in them for 100 years, which she had thought was rather foolish. She had no intention for going to sleep, and in fact, she was becoming wide awake every day which passed at Mesobate. She was beginning to like to be out of doors. She no longer hated the wine, but enjoyed it. She could run faster and longer, and she could skip up to 100. The bulbs in the secret garden must have been much astonished. Such nice place were made round them that they had all breathing space they want. And really, if Mistress Mary had known it, they began to show up and their darker and burned them tremendously. The sun could get at them and warm them, and when the rain came there, it could reach them at once. So began to feel very much alive. Mary at a determined little person, and now she has something interesting to be determined about. She was really much absorbed indeed. She worked and dug and grew up these steadily, only becoming more pleased with her work every hour instead of trying of it. It seemed to her like a fascinating sort of play. She found many more of the sprouting poor green points than she had ever hoped to find. They seemed to be starting up everywhere, and each day she was sure she found tiny new ones, some so tiny that they barely peep above the earth. There were so many that she remembered what Martha had said about the snowdrops by the thousand, and about bulbs spreading and making new ones. These had been left to themselves for 10 years, and perhaps they had spread like the snowdrops into thousands. She wondered how long it would be before they showed that they were flowers. Sometimes she stopped digging to look at the garden and tried to imagine what it would be like when it was covered with thousands of lovely things in bloom.
Problems that teenagers are faced with today are multifarious but interrelated in many cases. One problem invites another, then two more problems. Parents, teachers, and other guardians should be well aware of the problems to the best abilities. The sad fact is, even in solid and stable family units, teenagers may face with uncertainty, confusing, and wrong directions involving their lives. Those who have witnessed and experienced broken homes, unsafe sex, alcohol, drug abuse, and bullying issues show themselves differently in the community they live in. Proper parenting is vital, especially in the very formative years of the children, so that they can grow up with the manners and teachings taught by their parents.
Problems that teenagers are faced with today are multifarious, but interrelated in many cases. One problem invites another, then two more problems. Parents, teachers, and other guardians should be well aware of the problems to their best abilities. The sad fact is, even in solid and stable family units, teenagers may face with uncertainty, confusion, and wrong direction in both their lives. Those who have witnessed and experienced broken homes, unsafe sex, alcohol, drug abuse, and bullying issues show themselves different in the community they live in. Proper parents is vital, especially in the very formative years of the children, so that they can grow up with the manners and teaching taught by their parents.
Problems that teenagers are faced with today are multifarious, but interrelated in many cases. One problem invites another, then two more problems. Parents, teachers, and other guardians should be well aware of the problems to their best ability. The sad fact is, even in solid and stable family units, teenagers may face with uncertainty, confusion, and wrong directions involving their lives. Those who have witnessed and experienced broken homes, unsafe sex, alcohol, drug abuse, and bullying issues show themselves differently in the community they live in. Proper parenting is vital, especially in the very formative years of the children, so that they can grow up with the manners and teachings taught by their parents.
Problems that teenagers are faced with today are multifarious, but interrelated in many cases. One problem invites another, then two more problems. Parents, teachers, and other guardians should be well aware of the problems to their best abilities. The sad fact is, even in solid and stable family units, teenagers may face with uncertainty, confusion, and wrong direction involving their life. Those who have witnessed and experienced broken homes, unsafe sex, alcohol, drug abuse, and bullying issues show themselves differently in the community they live in. Proper parenting is vital, especially in the very formative years of the children, so that they can grow up with the manners and teaching taught by their parents.
Problems that teenagers are faced with today are multifarious, but interrelated in many cases. One problem invites another, then two more problems. Parents, teachers, and other guardians should be well aware of the problems to their best abilities. The sad fact is, even in solid and stable family units, teenagers may face with unsteady, confusion, and wrong directions involving their lives. Those who have witnessed, experienced broken homes, unsafe sex, alcohol, drug abuse, and bullying issues show themselves differently in the community they live in. Proper parenting is vital, especially in the very formative years of the children, so that they can grow up with the manners and teachings taught by their parents. Thank you.
Problems that teenagers are faced with today are multifarious but interrelate in many cases. One problem invites another, then two more problems. Parents, teachers, and other guardians should be well aware of the problem to their best ability. The sad fact is, even in solid and stable family units, teenagers may face with uncertainty, confusion, and wrong direction involving their lives. Those who have witnessed and experienced broken homes, unsafe sex, alcohol, drug abuse, and bullying issues show themselves differently in the community they live in. Proper parenting is vital, especially in the very formative year of the children, so that they can grow up with the manners and teaching taught by their parents.